That's on cruise ships, so we got rock and heavy metal and country and yoga and salsa. And what we're most known for is Group Cruise, which is all electronic dance music. Been doing it for 22 years. And yeah, we've booked artists from Tiesto and John Summit and Diplo and all that stuff. And yeah, we can get into that later, but there's like 13 stages, 24/7 music, around 200 artists. It's 4 days on Royal Caribbean. It was just the largest music cruise in history. And yeah, it's a transformational journey at sea.
And it's a very good time. I've been multiple times. My name is also Jason. I work for Relentless Beats out of Arizona. We're the largest independent promoter in the United States. So we do about 465 events a year. Some of our flagship festivals are Decadence, Arizona, and then we produce Experts Only with John Summit and his team in New York, which we just did the inaugural of last year, and we'll be running it back for the second one this year.
I am also Jason. I'm the talent buyer of Audiophile based out of Oahu. I was formerly a talent buyer for Relentless for 4 years, so that's the connection there. Yeah, I produce a bunch of independent shows on island, club shows, special events. Yeah, just building a market in a unique place.
Despite showing hands, so many people here are DJs, producers. Are there any promoters?
Is anyone named Jason?
Alright, so I think we'll just dive in and talk about just all of you started pretty humbly, as I know, and I want to talk about scaling events from conception to where they are now and what that looked like.
That's all you. Scaled it from 10 rooms, tell the story.
So I started, my dad was a teacher, my mom was a secretary in Michigan, and from outside of Grand Rapids. And yeah, I got a group of friends together to go on a cruise. I didn't have any money. I didn't know anyone in the cruise industry. I didn't know one DJ when I started it. I couldn't afford to rent speakers or CDJs or mixers, so my friends drove them from Michigan and Chicago down to Miami. And it was 125 people. I had a 375 person email list. And I just saw people's lives change. Like, I just knew I was onto something. And that was the start of it. I put a business plan together to charter a cruise ship in 5 years. Double it every year, 125, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000, which is the smallest mass market cruise ship. And it took me 7 years to do that. And since then, we've done 28 full ship cruises. We're Carnival and Norwegian Cruise Line's Charter Partner of the Year. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah. God, I went to my first electronic dance event in 2016, Mad Decent Block Party. I'd never been to an electronic event. Prior to that, I was playing professional and collegiate baseball, and my friends dragged me and I didn't want to go. I got there, immediately ditched all of my friends, went around and talked to strangers the whole night, had an amazing time, and next thing I know, my phone was dead, and I called my friends. They're like, we thought you hated it and left. We already left. And I'm like, how am I getting home? I paid like $180 to get home in an Uber, and fresh off professional baseball and college, I didn't have 2 nickels to put together. Next festival, last minute, I bought my ticket and I go, crap, transportation. I don't want to get stuck in an Uber surcharge again. I rented a party bus, and I thought I'd maybe have like 20 to 30 friends come. I had 75 people on the bus, made more money in a week than I'd ever made at my corporate job. And last person that came off the party bus that night was, what's the plan for the next one? So at 3 a.m. I started a company email address and an Instagram page and Twitter and Facebook, and I started my first entertainment company. 2.5 years later, after about 210 events, the company that I got stranded at festival bought my company from me and offered me a full-time position. And I've been there 7 years now and probably have produced a little over 2,000 to 2,500 events.
I hate that I have to go ferret after these guys. Yeah, I grew up as a military brat, so I lived all over. My dad got stationed in Hawaii. That's where the connection comes from. Ended up going to high school out there. I was an emo kid in high school, which is really weird for Hawaii. There's not a lot of emos on islands, but that belonging and that scene made me realize how much I love music and community. And that kind of led to me falling in love with dance music. Went to this event called The Shop. First DJ I saw was DJ Reza, R.I.P. And kind of fell in love with dance music from there. There was an annual festival called Love Festival held every summer at the water park. And since then, I just fell in love with raving, with music, with community. Ended up going to the University of Arizona, tried looking for my people, went to Camp Student Radio, jumped on a radio show with some friends, ended up starting to DJ for fraternities. Eventually that led to producing events, and on an independent level, I would just go online and just try to find emails and just email every agent I can, hey, how much to book this act? You know, just a kid, you don't really know what you're doing, but you gotta just go out and try. I was living in Tucson for the last 10 years with my own company called Spectro Entertainment. Very similar, got offered a full-time job at Relentless Beats, folded my company, moved out to Phoenix. I kind of kept in contact with a lot of networks and people in Hawaii, and that's where that came from, and just stayed connected to the island and was producing out there and co-producing. All the while I was producing in Tucson. Eventually moved to Phoenix, became a full-time buyer. Now I went back independent. I'm the type that likes to call his own shots, so went from a large independent company to just being independent to myself.
Okay, this is a question, since all of you guys are involved in talent buying, what are some things that you look for with like up-and-coming artists, producers? What's going to make you like respond to the email and the pitches?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways where you can seek talent, right? Especially when you're starting out. A lot of it, you're not getting sort of inbound messages or anything from agents saying, book this act, right? No one trusts you, no one knows you. So when you're on the ground, as for me as a kid, it was really about just going out and listening to the music, listening to the, whoever's performing at what show. The most important thing is the support around the DJs too, or the headliners. Whose music are they playing? Go to an after party, go to a pre-game. Whose music is everyone playing? And that kind of, you just start seeing these trends and you can kind of catch on. And obviously just being a fan yourself, you have to be a big fan in order to be a good talent buyer. But just understanding like what's out there and who's listening to what. Sometimes I get pulled up in my office and I forget to go out and talk to people, but it's all about community. It's all about getting out there and talking to other humans and just asking the question, like, who are you listening to? What music do you like? It's very on the nose, but it's very helpful for a talent buyer to understand that.
Okay, and for you, Jason D, since there's like a limited amount of space on Groove Cruise for artists, what does the talent selection process look like for that?
So luckily I have an amazing talent team that does it, and they're all, I don't know how they find some of these guys. Sometimes on like SoundCloud. I remember Bunts was one that we recently booked and no one knew who he was when we booked him, and then we actually put him to headline on the beach and people were upset because they're like, who is this guy? And they crushed it, like amazing set on this island in Haiti actually called Labadee that we had to play. John Summit we booked years ago, Disco Lines we booked years ago, even Dead Mouse before he was big, and a lot of artists. So my talent team just has this, knack of kind of finding artists. And a lot of it has to do with their community, and are they engaged with their community? Do they build their community? Do they build relationships? Do they have relationships with their community? You can tell on social media if it's bullshit, and you can tell on some of these platforms if it's bullcrap. How much tickets do they buy? What venues are they performing in? And also just thinking about it as a partnership. So if you're trying to get booked at a venue or on a cruise or whatever, what is it that they do that I can help support? So not just like book me, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna help, promote or bring sponsors or something unique about your music or decor or other things, or give them a reason to book you, and then continue to build that relationship with your fans, and just keep grinding and building that. And that's kind of how I build Groove Cruise too. It's just person by person by person, and each person that we talk to is the most important person in the room. We call it everybody on the ship is the captain. And we're very focused. Like when you call us or email us, it's captain support, then you are the most important person in the world. And I feel like as an artist, it's the same thing. Like your fans, build relationships with them, add value to their life. I'm getting a lot more into like the transformation economy, which I can talk about later if anybody's interested. But that, and then we also have, so that's like getting booked and paid. And then we also have a DJ contest that we do in the fall every year. We've discovered some solid artists that way. And then also we have open decks, and open decks is for artists who are paying to come on group cruise, and then we have, I don't even know, 50 to 100 spots or so that we actually fill with with DJs that are actually already coming on the ship. So, and then we promote them and, give them a platform and,
Yeah, I actually work as an artist manager too, so I have 5 touring artists I represent. We've played internationally, nationally, in EDC, Bonnaroo, you name it. And we have a thing we call our super fan form. So each artist on my team has a simple form, and we collect shirt sizes, addresses, like all the information. Like we had this kid in LA that came to an Econova show, and his name's Renee, and this dude was front row on the rail the whole show, having time of his life. I immediately go find him afterwards, like, you gotta come meet the DJ, just made that introduction, and he was our first super fan. And we, like, an address, t-shirt size, so we hand wrote him a thank you letter a week later. That's just a random fan from the artist. We sent him a shirt, a signed photo a few months later, and now our super fan forum has probably about 350 people on it that we actively do these just gestures for and build those relationships. Because those 350 fans right there that are on that forum are more valuable than 10,000 likes, a million streams, anything. Like, it is building that. So all of my artists, we try to go, how many super fans can we create, and how do we continuously engage them to stay involved with the projects?
So yeah, grow your community. And how can growing your community lead to doing brand partnerships or just overall growth for artists?
Yeah, I have a brand partnership side at least. Obviously if you have an existing community, there's loyalty there. What does every brand want that's trying to sell anything? They want brand loyalty. So it's really fostering those relationships and creating that level of loyalty for anything.
And what's the difference between an event that runs smoothly and one that's actually profitable? Because I know in our business we've all run events that have completely bombed and completely been home runs.
You've been there.
Oh man, I really think for me, it was always ticket sales. I mean, how much money do you have to spend? I remember doing a lot of my early shows, and you're just trying to sell tickets, and sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not. I remember booking Helicopter Showdown on a Tuesday night at Club Congress in Tucson. Just a kid just trying to do a show. I had maybe 80 people there, and I think I was cruising for a $2,000 loss. I remember sitting in my car just being like, what am I doing with my life? And behind the scenes, right, for me, it's how could I have saved money? How could I have done better marketing? How can I kick up ticket sales? It really, money is a big thing. It's really just about the lead up to the show and how those logistics can go smoother when, especially on an independent level, when you're looking for the right people to help you for maybe less pay and just try to do it for more community. But I've also been there where you have a really successful show. Granted, both can go smooth and both can go poorly, but having the right budget always helps. So, double check your budget sheets, make sure you have the right amount of money and all those expenses, and hire good people that work for what they're worth.
It's tough. I've definitely lost 7 figures on an event or more, and it's not fun. Almost have been out of business before, taking swings on ideas or events that didn't work. And because I think of our captain focus, I would never skimp on the experience, because it's so important that a reputation and just doing the right thing and just continually knowing who you are and doing the right thing I think is really important. Are there obviously areas you can cut? Yeah, you need to. You need to cut as much as you can to stay alive. There's definitely a lot that goes. There's definitely a lot that goes into a losing event and ticket sales, and you learn by making mistakes, and you got to put yourself out there, and you got to try new things, and you got to continually innovate, and just be the first new person in your category. Always thinking outside the box, and sometimes it means taking risks. A lot of times it means taking risks, and sometimes it doesn't work, and that's part of how being successful. We've all been punched in the face kicked down and all that stuff, and that's how you learn. So.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a person in the promoter world that's sitting on a panel here that hasn't taken a massive risk, a massive loss. I think my first major event, I threw a block party for like 4,000 people next to Arizona State when I was 25, and I maxed out my credit card, I zeroed out my savings account, I think I took a loan against my car. I was getting money, however, I couldn't pull this off. I called my mom, I'm like, hey, if this flops, I'm gonna move home. So I've been there, but I think as the event producer, it's like when you're on the flight and the plane starts to get the turbulence and shake. I usually don't freak out unless I see the flight attendant starting to freak out. She does it. So it's the same as a promoter, like you gotta be steady, like there's always something crashing or falling behind the scenes, like on the radio hearing everything going wrong, but you look out and everything's running smooth and the attendees don't know it, and that's really the game. On the budgeting side, I think we've gotten really good at Relentless Beats where, hey, we're on pace to sell out, we're gonna do a sellout budget, so the decor and experience scales up, the production scales up. Hey, we're gonna come in more of like we call it our target, which is where we wanna be to have a good, profitable show. And hey, ticket sales are scaling toward target, we're scaling toward break even. So every event like Decadence, we spend $10+ million to produce, 65,000 people, and I got 3 different budgets I'm playing in based on how sales are going. So November I might be at a target budget, and then come December, hey, we're gonna get a break even actually, or like this last year, like, hey, we're gonna hit sellout, let's go crazy and add all the fun stuff to enhance the experience.
Yeah, earlier, by the way, when I was saying I lost $2,000, I was 20 years old. Last year, I worked on a festival that lost $200,000, and I was the lead talent buyer on that. So I'm still up at night staring at the ceiling saying, what am I doing with my life? But yeah, I think the biggest thing though is just paying the right money. I think we all can probably understand that costs have gone up across the board, and right now that's kind of a big thing. It's just like finding the right artists who are willing to like play with you and partner on something because they want to, and doing it for the right money. Because there's a lot of people out there that pay the money, and I get it. Sometimes it's about like getting something done. But when you start your event and you budget correctly and you stick to your budget, that saves you a lot of headache for sure.
Okay. Great. How have brand partnerships evolved from like simple offerings and like singular like fan experiences into something that's fully integrated and that people actually want to attend or like use?
I've done a few brand partnerships with Group Cruise, and I've lined up sponsors for the last 7 years. I've probably worked with about 400 different brands. I have annual partnerships with Beatbox, Red Bull. I've worked with Verizon Wireless, Amex. And again, brand loyalty, and right now when you go to a festival, one, those people are paying a lot of money to be there. Our average attendee attends 9 of our events a year. It's a very loyal, committed community, and you're getting a chance to get your brand in front of them during something that they're having good memory associations with, they're with their friends. And the best brand partnerships are the ones that create an experience where you can get lost from the music for a bit and go sit and hang out with your friends. There's nothing more I love than being at one of my festivals and walking and just seeing like a group of people sitting on the ground in some weird activation, or like we did a roller disco one year. I had axe throwing where they're doing axe throwing with Jaws and Millennium at the event. Like, I still can't believe I got that one approved. They wouldn't let me do a petting zoo at the festival, but they let me do axe throwing. But I'm always trying to think like, what's the craziest thing you could put at a festival that people are gonna go, oh my god, they have that. Like Decadence this year, we had a pickleball tournament sponsored by this Finnish drink company called The Long Drink. And it's creating those moments for people to create the memories with their friends. You won't always remember who you saw at the festival, but you'll never forget who you went with.
Yeah, and we do have a decent amount of brand partnerships, and it's always about like, how can you make the experience better? How can you, I'm actually in the back is Gregor from Red Bull, we just met this morning. And he's always about, Red Bull's been core to this culture from the start. They were like the first ones, and he's always like, how do we, make this experience better for the guests, and make it more impactful, and just getting creative. Like Jason said, he's a genius in terms of partnerships with brands, total genius. One thing with sponsors is to not build your budget around sponsors. That's for me, that's my experience anyway. I've always looked at sponsors as a plus, not as you need it in order to run your event. Because if you needed to run your event and that doesn't happen, or maybe it happens for 2 years, and then the third year you're expecting that money to come in and it doesn't, you are up a creek. So, I've always looked at, partnerships as an add-on and as a bonus, and adding to the experience. Like each of our artists also has to do an activity on the ship, so that can be, pickleball or twister or dodgeball or there's some funny stories of a lot of the dinner with an artist. So yeah, they have to do an activity, and sometimes the brands will get involved in that.
We've done some tequila tastings with like Patron on Groove Cruise, and they came out and did a whole thing. We've done whiskey tastings. We had an espresso martini meetup the one year, which was one of my personal favorites. I didn't sleep after I had about 7, but
yeah, so like Jason is getting creative and thinking outside the box, and going to the brands with really unique, fun ideas.
Yeah, the brands are usually looking for a way of, how can I connect with the audience? And, a lot of brands will try to bring their own activations in. And what I've done is I survey my audience. What do you want to see at the festival? What do you care about? And now I can go to the brands with hard-driven data of like, here's what our attendees actually value and want to see. And if you want to gain them as a loyal customer, build this for them. And that's really been the focus.
Okay, since we're all like independent, like agency company owners, what are some of the biggest challenges beyond money, like running events and like just competing with like the major conglomerates?
Radius clauses. A lot of radius clauses.
Yeah, those are fun.
You want to go into that one?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always worked on smaller teams, which I think has its positives and negatives in terms of, who's sharing the load of what work. I think a lot of people on an independent level have to wear multiple hats. You have to be involved in multiple departments. So sometimes you're really good at one thing and you're okay at something else, and you're terrible at another thing, but you still have to do it all. And sometimes I think as independents, you naturally want to have your hands in everything just because it's yours, it's your baby, it's your team's baby. So I think it's really like figuring out how to delegate tasks to a smaller team and figuring out who does what. And sometimes things fall through the cracks and you have to figure out how do we, problem solve this. And with a smaller team, sometimes it's really easier to group chat with, a few other people. I work directly with my team of 3 other guys in group chats, and we just talk all day. Or at Relentless, we had departments. I literally just spoke to the 2 other talent buyers, and we just focused on talent buying. That was the thing that I loved about both experiences. You can be in a situation where you have a team that's just focused on one thing and you are the best at that, and then you worry about your job. But on a kind of micro scale of that, when you're doing your own shows, you have to worry about everything, so there's a lot more pressure. I would say that's probably been my biggest challenge is delegating tasks to smaller teams.
Yeah, and with events, especially weather-related ones in the middle of the ocean, with weather, we have a 1,600 or maybe it's 2,000 point checklist, and it's a lot of details, and there's a lot of stuff we have to do with U.S. Customs and Immigration. We have to deal with this and that, and brokers and blah blah blah. Sometimes we were just talking about a Tiesto show that we did in the Bahamas on a private island, and that ship, no cruise ship had been to that island, I think, for 7 days before that, because the waves were too big, so they couldn't get into the island. And I just remember looking at the weather, and even if it's nice outside, if the waves are too big, they couldn't get the tenders into the dock. And I just remember just shitting my pants. I had like barges of production that we sent from Fort Lauderdale all the way over there. We had like 20 people on the island setting up the stage the night before. I mean, it was stressful. But in the end, no one saw that. And then I get there on the island and the VIP's not set up, so I've got my VIP time, and we're just like frantically like trying to get this all together behind the scenes. And it was a shit show. But in the end, from the guest experience, they didn't see any of that. They're like, oh wow, this went so smooth, like that's great, awesome. And we're, just sweating bullets behind it, because I would have lost so much money on that, and sometimes you gotta take the, take
Mother
the
Nature
chances.
is undefeated.
Yes, exactly. So you never know. I mean, I know you guys have had weather issues for sure, huge ones, and that's another insurance, or we couldn't get insurance for that particular one, I don't think. And you just don't know. We always have plan A, plan B, and plan C for certain situations too. So always think like, hey, if it does rain, or if it's only going to rain for a little bit, do you cancel it, or do you continue on because it's going to break in a little bit? And how do you know that? Are you in touch with like someone that knows that? Or luckily the captains are actually like meteorologists, so they tell us. But it's challenging. Just working with great people. I'm very blessed to just have an incredible team around me. Most of them started as volunteers or interns, and they've kind of grown within the company. So I'm just very blessed to have a team whose heart is in the right place. They love what we do. They literally pour their heart and soul into it. They're always coming up with new ideas, and it just makes it so much more fun to work with people that you love.
Well, when the team has that culture too, it radiates throughout the entire event, and the love and care from group crews, you feel it on the boat because they treat everyone like a captain, and that's really is when you have that core culture that spreads into everything.
Just real quick, speaking of weather, we had to reschedule 2 weeks of shows because of record storming and rain and fall in Hawaii, which was awful. So just wiped everything away. But the challenge of figuring out how to come together and resolve those issues and call the agents and find the new dates, that in itself has its own difficulties. But when it comes to something that's out of your control, people are understanding, and I think that's part of what's like, most people. That's what's beautiful about this industry for the most part.
You're always going to deal with people that are a pain in the ass. I always tell my team, like, when someone's really upset or like yelling at you, 9.5 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with that situation. They have other stuff going on. You just happen to be the outlet, so give them love, give them some attention, and so forth. And a lot of times it'll go away, or eventually come up with some type of amicable solution. But as we're talking about catastrophes, I was part of a pretty big catastrophe called COVID, and we were actually shut down for 2 years, completely. And I had to let everybody go in my entire company on one Zoom call. And I had to cut all my expenses and all these things, and it was a complete nightmare, disaster. And I was depressed, and went through, all of that. I didn't know if it was going to come back, but I think one thing that you just reminded me of, Jason number 3, was about just being honest and forthright with your customers or your clients or guests or captains. And so we started doing online streaming through our foundation and raising money for people that were experiencing hardships in our community. We raised like 50 grand. We gave out 250 grants to people in the events industry that were struggling. That's helped me get out of depression, because a lot of times when you're depressed, it's like me, why me in this terrible situation. But when you start helping other people and getting outside yourself, that actually can help a lot. And so that's what we did, and so that helped. And then also, there was one other thing I was going to say. So we started doing these State of the Oceans, which I still do to this day, once a month. And it's basically a way to be out there with your clients or fans or followers, and let them ask questions and be vulnerable and like tell them what's going on. So I was like, look, don't charge back on your credit card. Trust me, we're gonna get through this. If you need a refund, give me 90 days to give you a refund. I'll do the best that I can. And put that in. If you keep your money with us, then we're gonna give you some onboard credit on the next one. I don't know when the hell it's gonna be. Just trust me. And like 95, maybe 98% of the people actually kept their money with us. And I think that's because we were so just open with it and just honest. And I think that helped a lot, like when you're going through a tough time or going through a bad event, or weather situation or whatever, because I've seen companies and festivals who handle this terribly, horribly. I'm not going to mention one during COVID around here, but no refunds, no this, come on, it's COVID, and they have to fight it through their credit card, and they have to fight it through this, and lawyers, like, class action lawsuits, like, against the festival, like, come on, that's not the right thing to do. You know, it's not the right vibe to put out there, but anyways.
Okay, yeah, so if you're just starting out in the industry and maybe say you don't have money for like a larger artist, or you're a DJ, you want to get booked on your local shows, what are some easy ways that you can get involved?
When I first was trying to produce shows, I literally would just message any players in the market and just ask them a million questions. I know that sounds annoying, but it's actually great how many people out there, at least from my experience, are willing to kind of do something similar to this. I would go on Facebook and just message people, and this was like 2010, 2011, and they, I guess, would just like appreciate my passion, and it really opened up a lot of doors. Until this day, because of the few mentors that I had that would give back to me, I do the same thing. I go back to the U of A all the time, mentor the younger kids that are, you know, just wanting to get into something. I say, hey, here's my number, text, call me, ask me any questions. And it's really surprising how like passionate and driven they become when you answer a few questions. So it's just really about passing on that energy and finding the right people to mentor you. Yeah, that's just kind of how it got started for me.
Yeah, I would say one thing I've seen that's been really successful, and again, in managing 5 touring artists, is go create your own luck. If you can get 20, 30 friends, go to a local coffee shop, do a pop-up morning coffee shop, take your decks, take a few speakers, multi-cam recording, go create your own thing if you're having that much trouble struggling to find. After I started doing the party buses for Relentless Beats to their festivals, you know, I went from 1 bus to 3 to I was transporting thousands of people. You know, I started that whole thing with $500 in a credit card. That was all it took to rent the bus, and it built from there. You know, I started having a DJ on the bus, and then I would, you know, have free champagne and water, and I made it this whole experience. But you just gotta start and go kind of create it yourself. I emailed Relentless Beats, I wrote them a handwritten letter, I called, nothing. And finally, after not hearing from them, I'm like, I'll throw my own party, you know, and figure it out. And rent a venue, and you know, once you put your back against the rope, that's where you're gonna access the creativity in your brain to actually start problem solving, because now you're in it, and now there's something on the line. And when you don't put yourself back against the rope, you're not gonna be able to tap into the creativity in your brain to go figure it out. So the people that do take the risks, they're forcing to tap into that access of their brain to go execute something. And that's really the difference with everyone, is taking that risk and putting yourself in a position where this could hurt if this doesn't go well.
Yeah, it's like, what is your purpose in life? And if you have a purpose, kind of the world comes to you. And it's not that hard to be persistent when you have a purpose and you know what you're doing, and go in that direction and get hit and get punched in the face and just keep going, because you know who you are, and you continually like stay in your purpose and you're going, and nothing's gonna stop you except for you. That's it. There's no one that'll stop you if unless you do it yourself. And you'll figure it out, and you're gonna continue to try new things and continue to get new ideas and see what other people are doing and make it a little different and make it your own. And I'm not the most creative or sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm, you know, pretty good at like just finding people smarter than me, and we're just putting the pieces together to create that unique experience, and just caring and yeah, just staying persistent.
All right, there's about 10 minutes left, and just wanted to open it up to anybody that has any questions.
Hi, good morning. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Riley. I'm here with Pegasus Music Group, which is a music organization at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. I'm also an entertainment management student, and I'm graduating in August, so it's coming up. I was just wondering, looking back at where you started, I am interested in production management for live events. And was there any advice that you were given, or advice that you know now that you wish you would have known when you started, or anything you would have done differently when you first began?
It was good when you started right out of college.
So when I was in college, I was in pre-med, about to take the MCAT to go to medical school. And some of the best things that I learned during that whole process was internships and job shadowing. Because through that and then a few other conversations, I learned that I didn't want to go into the medical industry completely. So sometimes you might think, oh, this is my major, I have to go in that direction. I've spent 4 or 5 years going, I have to do that. You don't. you might realize that that shit sucks, but you're not gonna know until you start doing it. So that's the tough thing with college and stuff. Sometimes like, you think you just gotta keep going in this direction, but if that's not aligned with who you are and your purpose, it's not the right thing. So, reaching out to production companies, trying to get paid offers obviously first, and then if you can't, offer for free, or how can you add value, saying, hey, you saw you posted this thing, you might be struggling with that, I can help with that. And, just learning and putting yourself out there with the production companies, or just, hey, can I job shadow you at this next festival for the day? Can I, just go learn and just grow and sit in your staff meetings and add value to, wherever you can, or how can you help? And you'll learn so much that way. I learned so much in my internships and just doing, because knowledge is not power. I tell those people all the time, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. If you don't use what you learned, it doesn't make it's not power. It's sitting there in the back of your head. So you have to do things in order to learn. You have to make mistakes. You have to grow that way and put yourself in those situations where you're actually producing stuff or learning how it works and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would also say the best thing at that age, you could go pick 4 different things you might be interested in, do them for 6 months each, that's 2 years. And you might find 3 out of those 4 things you don't like at all, but the skill sets you acquired from just chasing something persistently for 6 months will transfer over, and you start to build those transferable skills by trying different things. Everyone wants to be this, Michelangelo's one of my favorite quotes, they asked him how he sculpted the statue of David, and he said, I didn't sculpt the statue of David, I chipped away at the marble until David appeared. And I think it's easier to figure out what you're not by doing things than sitting here trying to figure out what you are. So again, go try things that you might be interested in. There will be transferable skills that will ultimately build you into this palette of someone that can't go take on anything in the industry.
You got more questions? Second one.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Justin. I own All Good Entertainment. We're actually based out of Orlando, but we're doing something a little different, and I would love to get all of your guys' information. What we're doing is we're actually introducing all of the DJ talent to different people that we work with. We have a contract with Rolex, we have a contract with Raising Cane's, we do Formula One, and what we're trying to do is have a back end, and we're building it right now to where what the DJs play, we can tell you what they play at what clubs and what's going on, and we can give you that information and say, hey, in San Diego, California, Drake is massive over there, but Drake isn't good in Iowa. So we can kind of help you guys out with certain artists like that, and as well as put you guys in touch with some of the DJs in those certain areas, especially like Groove Cruise. If you have somebody, you have an artist coming from Texas, I can get you 3 or 4 DJs from Texas to be able to help with that as kind of a supply. So I didn't know if that's something you guys would be interested in. We're trying to look at a different way of doing it. So.
Yeah. That's awesome, thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Joey. I'm an artist and also a promoter and business guy. I have a question, and great panel, by the way, really awesome. I want to know, what's the most creative way you guys came up with getting money after you tapped out your bank account and your mom and dad and your credit card? What's the most creative way you guys came up and found the money to support the dream or the project?
This is perfect. I'm in my first entertainment company. I was 26. I started the party bus with $500 in a credit card. I started making money off the party buses, started throwing shows, and I wanted to book bigger and bigger talents, and I was funneling money from my corporate day job. I was 9 to 5 at DoorDash at the corporate office, and then 5 to 3 a.m. I was promoter by night. And I needed money to book big artists so bad that I started going to garage sales on the weekends. And I would go around, look at junk, look it up on eBay for how much it sold for, grab it, take it home, go list it on Facebook Marketplace and flip it. And I flipped garage sales for 2 years to help fund talent and pay for it. Everyone in this room has a smartphone and a free Saturday morning, grab a cup of coffee and go. It's the easiest, most practical way. If you can flip a hustle at a garage sale, you'll be fine in the industry.
So Groove Cruise was and Wet Travel was a side hustle for the first 5 years. I worked at the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, actually, right down the street until I got fired. Self-funded pretty much the entire time. And didn't have any partners. I had partners on events sometimes, like the Rock Cruise and so forth, where we'll split risk. But yeah, I couldn't, around COVID, I was struggling and needed money, and I couldn't get any money from banks, so I ended up getting MCA loans, which are shark loans, or ridiculous, terrible, but I couldn't get any money any other way, and I needed to fund certain deposits. I knew it was going to be coming in, the next month or two, or a couple months. So that was very difficult. I had, I think, 6 or 7 of them at like 20-30%. They were disgustingly gross and really bad. And but I had to do it in order to stay alive, and don't recommend it, but that's kind of how I got money. But I'm self-funded, so I've kind of just built my stuff that way. But yeah.
I actually went to college for film and television, and my passion was to be a film director. And so I double risked myself by going into music entertainment and video production. But I would film weddings, I'd film music videos. I worked on music videos with like Wiz Khalifa, Roscoe Dash, Austin Mahoon, tons of artists, and I would basically save that money and put it towards shows. I'd go and film weddings and take that money and put it towards shows. Yeah, I mean, it was just all about saving and moving money around and trying not to spend too much of it, and just taking that little money you have and just making the most calculated risk. Booking Helicopter Showdown on Tuesday night in Tucson is not one of those, but just slowly grow it.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I own a Afro House record label in Washington, D.C., and I also manage Afro House artists. And we started promoting events in Washington, D.C. to bring an Afro House scene, because they really don't have a true Afro House scene. And we threw our first successful event last month, and we have another one coming up in April. However, I want to break off into Amsterdam so I can start getting like an ADE sponsored event there. However, the venue that I'm working with is asking like, what experience do I have in that market, Amsterdam, promoting events? I did partner with another promoter in Amsterdam that does have some experience, but what would be my best approach to this venue owner, booker, for them to trust me and have confidence that we can actually throw an event there and, do well?
Yeah, I would say, the thing is like, where can I provide value? So if you have that local promoter there, absolutely go get the data, work with them. But hey, I'm gonna run X amount of dollars through meta ads, and I'm gonna use this targeting and go here. Hey, I think I can target off these other events and similar artists. So again, like, if you're willing to go invest into it, especially break through, like this weekend I'm programming 31 total events throughout Miami. I got 24 just at the Clevelander. Day party, night party on the roof, day party, night party at the pool. And I lost money on it for the first 2 years by design. And I went in and made that investment, and this year, I was able to work with Jared to get the EDMAs over to the Clevelander. We had a Groove Cruise party on Sunday at EDM.com, and I was able to bring all my groups and value, but I lost money on the event for 2 full years, and I did that by design, and I purposely went in knowing it was that investment because I was really playing for the later years.
And I think we have time for one more question. Yellow.
My name is Jason, and I want to be on the.
Let's go. Hey, Jason, we're getting further after this. Get him up here.
So, we've all seen the giant charts of the agencies that book the same people at all the same shows. And I'm an independent guy, and I'm having some pretty good success, but trying to get booked is a pain in my butt. Because I'm where all the hats. So, what's the best way to get to you guys, to get on a boat, to get to a show here? I even contacted the guys here early on about, if you want to spot, and they're like, oh, we don't get it.
Yeah. Release music really consistently, once a month, every 28 days. Like, you should have a record going out. There should be a storyline and creative going behind that. Like, build the audience online. You're gonna reach millions of people out there through all the same tools that we all have access to. So really lean and go down into that. Again, build community. Dr. Fresh is one of my favorite artists. He runs one of the best Discord channels for all of his fans. They're in his Discord chat talking about sports and things that have nothing to do with Dr. Fresh or dance music, but they're under his umbrella in his community, talking about these things and connecting with other people. So again, like the super fan forum I talked about, go build community. Every one of those people has 7 friends. If they're singing your praises to your friend group, or they're really on your song, they're gonna share it. So, get really consistent in what you're putting out. You're putting out value every week by creating something and giving something to digest. And then, again, how do you build community and story around that? I can go a whole other day down artist day, but I think the biggest thing is understanding your artist brand archetype is going to allow you to really lean in and know, hey, this is how I communicate. This is how my aesthetic looks. When everything's tight and cohesive, it becomes repeatable to where a promoter can see it and recognize it. One of my artists, I wanted to book at Space Yacht. I spent 2 years hyping up, gassing up the Space Yacht guys on socials, never asked for a single thing. And I was just constantly getting love and feedback because I genuinely thought what they were doing was amazing. And then 2 years later, I finally sent in a demo and they listened to it and they booked my artist a week later. It took 2 years of me just gassing someone up and just giving value because I had nothing else to provide. But I was able to provide that vibe, and by the time I went into their email, I knew they knew who I was because they'd seen me popping up on social for so long.
Okay, to that point real quick. So I've actually had 6 top 10 hits in the UK and top 40 hits in Poland. So my shit's popping. The US is a tough market to break. So, and I've got new records coming out with Barbara Tucker, Janice Robinson, so I'm working with some stellar individuals. Yeah, but
I can't tell you how many times I've seen, I had an artist I managed a year ago, he had 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify, and my artist with 30,000 monthly listeners on Spotify was getting booked more than him. Because there's one metric that matters more than anything, and it's how many people give a shit. How many people are going to buy merch when you do a merch drop? How many people are going to buy those tickets when you go? And that comes from community and feeling a part of it. So when you build that core group fan base, again, I want that super fan form for me with my artists is the only thing I care about. All the other metrics are vanity metrics in my opinion and all that. And again, I've managed artists on both sides of the spectrum.
We are out of time, sadly, but we will be around after.